right. Thank you. Sorry, I'm a bit short. Thank you very much for this introduction. And allow me, first of all, to introduce ourselves. And then after the introductions, we go into the presentation. So my name, first of all, is Alice Vozza. I work for the International Labour Organization based here in South Africa, in the Pretoria office as part of the Decent Work team. But today I'm speaking on behalf of the partnership that was announced yesterday with DCDT, UNDP, ITU, and the ILO, so the Digital Skills for Decent Jobs for Youth Partnership. And the research that we are presenting today has been part of our joint work, and particularly the preparatory work that we have done to inform future action and to get into the space of supporting digital skills for digital economy in South Africa. I've asked our researcher, Juliane, who is connected online, to join us today. She is the managing executive of Trifax, and she has been supporting our research work since the beginning. Both the analysis that we have conducted at district level and then the national level assessments. So she has been really part of the team with us since the beginning, but perhaps I just let Juliane say hi and introduce herself, so we also test that the microphone is working. Over to you.
Yeah, that's a good test. Can you hear me? My name is Juliane, and thank you for the introduction. You've said it all.
Okay, great. We will then basically share this presentation. I will just give a brief overview of the scope and the methodology and what we try to do while adding value to other existing research. And then I'll hand over to Juliane for the findings and just a little wrap up on the recommendations at the end. So we try to stay within 15-20 minutes between the two of us. So yes, I just need. Yeah, perfect. You can see the slides on the screen. So we have conducted what we call an assessment of the skill supply and demand in the digital economy, supported also by a labor market policy review and analysis of employment opportunities with the scope of identifying gaps and opportunities that, if addressed, can unlock job opportunities for the youth. Of course, when we started this work, we were very much aware that a lot has been done already, particularly in terms of research. We have seen it during these days, but we've also seen it once we joined the partnership, and particularly the Pathway Management Network, that many other organizations have conducted research. So the first proposition was, let's try not to replicate what was already done and rather try to add value and fill some of the gaps that we thought had not been addressed in previous research. You will see today the initial findings. They combine the study which has been completed and published for the district level analysis, but also the findings for the study at national level, which has not yet been published, but will be very soon. We are aiming by the end of March to have it validated and then subsequently published to inform the rest of the project. And we will go through different areas of our findings. I just would like to introduce what we thought was the entry point that could build on the work that was already done. So first of all, it's a national assessment, but it's trying to look into the sectors of the economy that have not been fully covered by other research. So we are very much aware, for example, of the study that was conducted by Arambe, by BPESA for the GBS sector, the critical skills survey. So all this information has been included and analyzed as part of our desk review. All the work that has been done under the pathway management networks by other stakeholders, under the research framework of the National Digital and Future Skills Strategy as well. So all this has been part of our desk review. So in conducting the national study, first of all, we said, let's focus on the sectors that have not been covered yet. And also bearing in mind that the time that we have conducted the research was already 2 years after living with the pandemic effects, and making an imposition on the way we work, on the way we learn, on the way we teach, and therefore being aware that the impact of COVID was just not a temporary aspect. Many of the research conducted was done before, but bearing this in mind, we were very much aware this is how it's going to change our way of work and learning, and therefore the way also we tackle the issue of digital skills. And also important to bear in mind that we have spoken this morning about frameworks. We have applied the ITU digital skills framework, which categorizes around basic, intermediate, and advanced skills. We have also added another layer or framework, if we can call it like that, which is the core employability skills, the skills for the future of work, the core skills for the future of work that the ILO has recently published, because we think that very often employers look into a combination of both. Together with technological skills, there is a set of core skills that are increasingly in high demand. So how can we apply these two layers together has been the focus of the research. And then we have looked into both the demand and the supply side. So on the demand side, through employer surveys and with the support of employers associations and business associations, we have reached out to a few hundreds of employers and enterprises, and we look into what is in demand from their side, not only in terms of the current occupations, but also the future in the next 5 years occupations that they might want to include. On the supply side, we have, of course, gone through a review of existing courses, looking into universities, TVET institutions, public, private, but also a lot of online platforms that are increasingly, again, as we heard also during these days, offering courses at a much faster speed and availability, even very often free of charges for young people to get upskilled in digital, at least basic or sometimes even intermediate digital skills. So the focus has been rather on skilling and upskilling needs that are in demand from the industry and perhaps not yet covered by the existing offer. And finally, we looked into also linked to the what we were saying before about the core employability skills. We looked also into entrepreneurship and what are the opportunities also for self-employment and entrepreneurship that are out there in the space of the digital economy. There are interesting outcomes coming from that. Last but not least, the perspective from the youth, which we thought it was perhaps not fully covered when we talk about youth not in employment, education or training. So since this project is contributing specifically to cover the needs of youth, needs not in employment, education and training, we mapped out the needs of about 4,200 young people that belong to this category. And then we have really analyzed through surveys and interviews their perspectives, their understanding of digital skills, and how do they access upskilling or training opportunities. So these were the added value that we were trying to bring to the research, of course, bearing in mind the work which is ongoing, and we took it also as an engagement opportunity with the different stakeholders that are operating in this space. Just before leaving the floor to Juliane to put the research into the context of a broader program, of course, we are not just doing the research for the sake of doing it, but to inform our future action, to inform possible curricular development, rolling out of training activities, working with teachers and support training of trainers, support the development of training institutions, and join all the efforts that are already ongoing in the country. And of course, this could also inform additional initiatives that we don't envisage yet. So it's just the beginning of the journey. but the idea is to continue into further capacity building at institutional level for the youth, and also trying to work at system level barriers that have been emerging. I would hand over to Juliane to take us through some of the findings, and then I will wrap up with some recommendations. So Juliane, over to you.
Yes. Okay, so now I would like us to walk through the different elements of the research that Alice has already spoken to. And the first one I would like to take a look at with you is really the employment opportunities that exist in the different level of digital skills that we've been looking at. So we've been speaking to over 800 businesses, and it was really important to us to also include more micro and SMEs, so that we really understand what the smaller players also need in the economy, also in line with what we already knew from the larger businesses. And what was interesting that came out of our study, or that we found, is that we really also see a need for advanced digital skills, where there is already a wide understanding of that, but also very interestingly for certain intermediary digital skills, especially digital graphic design, digital marketing, things like website development or website design, are very high in demand by employers at the moment in South Africa. We've heard also this morning about the framework that Professor Clanson has presented, and that of course it depends on which level one is when it comes to these different skill sets. And what we found is that when we look at advanced digital skills, then in the market, there's a huge demand for very experienced hires. So individuals that have a higher degree and also 3 to 5 years of work experience. So rather up the levels of their skill set. But when we look at those intermediary digital skills, what is interesting, and to some extent coding also falls into that, is that there is also a demand for at more entry level. So this means it can be either a course on top of matric, or it can be some work experience or some on-the-job training, or just a very practical training course that also is suitable or will fit to this demand. So this was really interesting for us to find. It's not only these advanced digital skills, or this morning, the framework we heard, it's more also called ICT practitioner skills that are relevant, but really also the intermediary ones, and those also at entry level, which is quite interesting, especially with the group of young people we looked at. Now, if we break that down, what we actually see in terms of the different sizes of businesses is that these intermediary digital skills are even more important than the advanced digital skills, particularly for SMMEs. So you can see the SMEs and the smaller businesses in the lighter gray, and the larger businesses in the darker gray. So they really prioritize advanced digital skills, but across the intermediary digital skills, it's for all of the businesses of different sizes that really have a demand here. And this is quite exciting, because what we also know is that for large businesses, there is also a limit to how much employment they can create. And often they have the ability already to offer certain training programs, which we also saw in our study. They have the more formalized ones. So the SMMEs are actually those that have a need and could create more increased opportunities also for young people if they could be included in certain training and upskilling or work experience programs, of course, in addition to larger businesses. So this was something we also thought was very interesting that we wanted to share with you. So overall, what we've seen is employers have a need for intermediary and advanced digital skills, and SMMEs are particularly looking for intermediary skills, and also entry level is an option here to actually link young people to employment opportunities. Now, the next section that Alice introduced was our interest in possible learning pathways, the focus on upskilling or skilling. And here for us, what we thought is, okay, what does the future demand also look like? So where should we actually focus on to ensure that it's not a momentary intervention, but can actually lead young people towards sustainable income generation or decent jobs? And what was interesting to us, when you see here the total figures on the top, it's what businesses say will really be important to them in the future. And then the darker gray is the current demand that exists. So what we actually see, what is important compared to the current demand, there is an increase. There's an increase, especially also again in the intermediary digital skills. In basic digital skills, also they say this will remain very important. So we know that the demand is less because more people and more employees have basic digital skills, but it's important for us to keep in mind that we do also upskill young people on these basic digital skills so that they can actually keep up with the demands in the business. But what is interesting here, we see there's an increase also in the demand in intermediary and advanced digital skills. And this really shows that this is a trend that businesses project to continue over the next coming 5 years. So this makes it really interesting to look at these areas in terms of really skilling and training programs, but also linked to then work experience programs, which I will speak later to. Now we have to look at what do young people actually, or especially youth, need that group. What do they know or what do they have in terms of skills? So we spoke to them about different skills, was in-person interviews, and we asked them, which have you used a lot, which have you used a little, which have you never heard of maybe. And what came out in our research is that for basic digital skills, around 1 in 2 say they have hardware skills, they've used it a lot. 1 in 4 have software or online operations skills. And it's a bit higher, so around half when we look at those that say that have used it a little bit. But this is often like the daily usage, often end user skills. Then when we look at that for the intermediary and advanced digital skills, they really very few say that they've used it a lot. We've also asked them to what extent they would feel equipped to apply for specific occupations in the sector, and the numbers were very low. Less than 1 in 20 felt equipped to apply to any of the posts that we know are currently in need in the economy in South Africa. So this was also very interesting for us to see, is that there is actually a potential to help young people develop certain skills to increase their ability to apply to certain jobs and to take up those opportunities. And we also see a huge gap in terms of the intermediary digital skills from what young people have at the moment and what is required in the market also in the future. And interestingly, in our research, what we also found is that for young people, that is not always known. They are not really aware that intermediary digital skills like digital design or marketing can also unlock opportunities. So there is an opportunity to create that awareness and that information. And then there's an opportunity to focus on skills that can be trained and that can be taught, especially to youth need where we know don't have a lot of digital skills, to increase their opportunities to be linked to to work opportunities. So this was interesting for us to really know that the demand for intermediary digital skills opens these opportunities to upskill young people. And this was really exciting. In the conversations that we had, where we triangulated our data also with industry associations and organizations working with young people, we also realized that there is, of course, an interest to find jobs or link young people to jobs, but also there is an opportunity to do this on a freelance basis. So there is an opportunity to actually provide a certain skill set to young people and then link them to businesses and give them entrepreneurial skills so that they can offer that on a more contractual basis, especially for smaller businesses that we know might not necessarily have the capacity to take on a full-time person, but we'll come to this also with recommendations. But when we think of entrepreneurial opportunities, thus we know is a focus also of a lot of important players. Even the Department of Higher Education and Training has also seen that need. And what we realized in our research that we did on district level, which was part of the also UNDP support for the district development model that is piloted in the OR Tambo district municipality, is that sometimes a context is very specific and might not speak to the findings we have on a national level. So for example, in OR Tambo, in agriculture plays a huge role, and that is young people are aware of that, but we also spoke to entrepreneurs and we asked them, what should young people focus on here in this municipality? And then, over 60% said the focus has to be on agriculture. This is where we see potential. And this is where we feel that they often call it a golden key or the one opportunity. So this shows us that the upskilling for jobs might not be suitable in that context because the jobs are not yet there. And also it has to happen in a specific industry. So this now asks us or leads us to ask, where are the opportunities that young people can access in the digital economy in this specific context? And it's very interesting that we found repetitively also with the service is that a lot of entrepreneurs, also micro entrepreneurs, especially in the informal sector, they are very aware and very savvy in using digital skills and using digital platforms and tools for their businesses. So when we asked them which opportunities they see, it was really a reflection of what they are already trying, which we know is mainly using social media for marketing purposes, but also to order and to deliver. And what we also found is that they increasingly sell through the internet, often also through social media, especially through the larger platforms. And they tap into new opportunities like digital payments or market research. So this was quite exciting to see that entrepreneurs are doing that and see an opportunity there. And that's where we know that in a specific context, when we look at opportunities, we have to see what is there in terms of entrepreneurial opportunities and which tools and platforms can help entrepreneurs. And we identified a few that you can see on the right-hand side. And what is often suitable is when they are actually either zero rated or they are linked to an easy access through WhatsApp. Or any other communication platform, so that it's easy also to use for the entrepreneurs, because these are the tools that can really widespread reach micro and small entrepreneurs also in the informal sector, to make sure that they are also included, especially in a context where the jobs that we often hear are in demand might not exist on a local basis. So this is something we also wanted to share with you, to really say that the digital economy can also facilitate those entrepreneurial activities. And actually what is important for us to also understand is that even the smallest entrepreneurs are already exploring that, mainly with social media and communication platforms, but they have this awareness and this attempt also in rural areas. Now, lastly, I would like to speak to the perception or this perspective of young people, because we did not only ask them which skills they have and use, but we were particularly interested in how they engage with support programs, how they engage with the information, how they think about their career to understand how to reach them. And we realized that the top need of young people is still in terms of resources, financial support, as well as connectivity. So young people in this country, really, we've heard this before at this conference, are affected by the digital divide. And we know that any support that can get them closer to access and to connectivity, internet access or resources is really essential. But then what I also thought was really interesting, and I think of some focus is also there from a lot of stakeholders, to actually say, how do we help young people to understand which skills they need, but also where they can gain them. So around 1 in 2 young people we spoke to said, I actually need information. I do not know where to start. And this is quite important for us to think that, especially when we develop certain offers, certain platforms, or we use certain online courses, how do we create that awareness among young people and increase their utilization and the uptake? So I think here is a very big focus area of specific interventions and programs that can support young people, especially youth need. We also know that, of course, data costs remain a challenge, but also very important to remember is that from a business perspective, work experience is essential, and young people are aware of that. So 1 in 3 say they really need a job or practical experience for them to gain skills, and also for them to feel that they have an opportunity to actually find work. And this is essential, because whenever we think about training or upskilling, we have to keep in mind is how does that help young people to then transition into employment or have an income generating activity. And this is very important to think through all programs, through all offers, but also through possible partnerships that can actually change the experience of youth need in the digital economy in South Africa. So much to the findings. I will hand back to Alicia, who will help to take us through the recommendations that we identified based on this finding, but also based on all the research that led up or that flew into this research.
Thank you very much, Juliane. That was great. Just a few words on the findings, and this allows us also to summarize a bit what emerged and what Juliane has presented, and perhaps open the space for some discussion and questions. So if we organize them around, let's say, 3 main building blocks, which is again looking at the skills supply side, the skills demand side, and then systems level intervention. We can see here a few recommendations. This is not exhaustive. This is a summary of what is emerging now, and there may be other points to be added as we finalize our research. We are still doing, by the way, a few key informants interview in the course of next week, just to summarize. So on how to equip youth with the skills that are in demand. Of course, we all know that it's crucial to keep an eye on what is in demand from the market, from a fast changing environment and changing demand among enterprises. As Juliane was saying, there is definitely still the need to increase capacities at the level of basic digital skills for those that are not equipped or that have been not exposed to any training opportunity up to now, but the added value that we can find if we interface these findings with the demand side analysis is really at the level of intermediary skills that were described before, and to a certain extent advanced digital skills, but also bearing in mind the different demands. If we look at small and medium enterprises, they're still very much in need of intermediary digital skills. We also have to take into account the growing offer of online platforms. We didn't have the time to go in depth into the overview of all the courses that we have analyzed, but there is a lot of offer already online. So how can we enable and facilitate access to these online training opportunities, which shouldn't replace what is offered by TVET institutions or by other training institutions, but they can really fill the gap, especially at the level of basic digital skills. And then something that is coming out quite often is in discussing with key stakeholders is the combination between the theoretical part and the work-based learning part as an essential component to unlock employability. So how can we facilitate learning environments through the various different schemes that already exist in South Africa, but they are not specifically applied yet or not fully to digital skills learning. So how can we facilitate better work-based learning opportunities that bridge also nicely with unlocking job opportunities? There is a need for strengthening definitely career guidance and development in this space. And then how to incorporate all this information into existing platforms. And for instance, we are discussing actively on how to support the growing of information available through the SA Youth platform that this initiative is part of. How can we facilitate better partnerships between TVET and small and medium enterprises, again, to facilitate access to first job opportunities? And interesting, this finding about the potential entrepreneurs, there is a space to provide entrepreneurial digital service training, because there is this demand from small and medium enterprises, which could be met by young entrepreneurs. Last but not least, a few system level intervention. And again, the list is not exhaustive, but there is a lot of demand in terms of training the trainers, supporting teachers, supporting institutional capacity building to embrace digitalization and to make sure that training institutions are fully equipped, not only from the infrastructure point of view, but from the point of view of the capacity of teachers and the faculty. And then in general, to support innovative ideas that we have identified happening in different provinces. We will dedicate a section in the publication on ongoing innovative practices that perhaps can be upscaled at national level as well. I would stop here, so perhaps we have some time for some questions or comment. Thank you very much.